together.
And I'd just like to say we've got Steve Schultz here, who is our operations manager, who joined us about a year and a half ago now. Steve, is that right? And he's been doing a wonderful job with our systems and our web presence, etc. So are we ready to roll with our presentation?
Yes, but before you do that, can you just issue the challenge that you want?
That's part of our presentation.
It's rolled into the presentation, Peter, but
go ahead then. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
It's
so yeah, great. Kia ora koutou. We just wanted to introduce you a little bit to not only who we are but where we are. Our vision is the catalyst for sustainability through education and research, and we take this with a lot of enthusiasm, and we take it seriously, and we have a lot of really cool things on the boil, normally speaking, when we don't have COVID. All right. We're moving along. Here we are. So EcoQuest has established a sustainable learning community, and as Peter said briefly earlier on, these are the kind of topics and areas that we move in. That's our sort of happy space. So ecology is about relationships. It's about relationships between people and their environment, and of course within natural environments among species, but we try not to exclude people from that picture. We're quite aware of environmental policy and sustainability challenges that we all face, and we also look deeply at sustainable livelihoods, principally in primary industry as well. So here's where we are. We are in Whakatiwai, which is on the coast of Tikapamoana, or the Firth of Thames. We're only just over an hour south of where you all are in Auckland on a good day when there's not too much traffic. Right. And our home base is set up so that up to 26 students can live on site in small cabins, and we have all the necessary things you need: classrooms, wharakai, office buildings, and so on. And so residential programs allow people to be fully immersed, to become part of our community, and to operate really successfully and intensely in the studies that we do. All right. And part of our challenge, of course, points towards, as Peter alluded to, that whole idea of climate resilience. So on this coast, Wharakawa coast, it's a rural, coastal, small community that we're in. There's little houses dribbled all along between Cleveland and Thames on this coast. Particularly for us, most of what people do here is we live by the tides, and the tides allow us to go out fishing, go out swimming, take out the waka, be out and about, do research, launch our boats. And then the other side of the tide is that we don't only live by the tides, we have to live with the tides. And this is, I can't think. Right. We need to go back. Here we go. All right. Our screen has a little blob here on the side that we're obliterating EcoQuest at the moment, which is appropriate. This was in 2018. It was a once in 100-year storm event, and it's resulted in massive inundation of this coast of seawater, which persisted on and on. And that's where we're looking for engaging on solutions.
So, as you can see, we have extreme vulnerability, and it's not just EcoQuest, it's the whole coast. In 2018, January the 5th, we had a confluence of circumstance that gave rise to a sudden inundation from the sea. Now, our community is used to flooding frequently because the villages are built around the rivers, and some of those in extreme weather break their banks and cause flooding. So now 2018 was where we were reminded that we are stuck right in the middle of very powerful forces that are only going to increase. So it's a vulnerable community, and what's the next bit? And so we so what we feel like we belong to this community. We are situated right across one of the rivers, the Whakatiwai River, with the local marae, Wharakawa marae, which is the upoko marae for Ngāti Pawa and Ngāti Whanaunga. And so we feel like we're seeking sustainable solutions that involve people, their culture, our socio-economic circumstance, our political and natural environment. So we're looking at the whole picture as what are the threats here, and what can we do to model ways of meeting these challenges of living in such a fragile situation. People are not ready to leave, so we've got to think about how we can live here productively.
Yes, just continuing on from what John and Ria have been saying, as part of this whole reshuffle, pivoting around COVID, one of the things we're looking at is around how can we use our site, our field centre, to best support what we educate and what we teach. So it's all around sustainability, living within the natural environment and so on. So we're quite keen for the site not only to be the location of our teaching, but also to exemplify and explain and demonstrate what we're trying to teach. We're also looking at it as being an example for the wider community. So not only being good for our specific teaching purposes, but also to demonstrate both resilient and sustainable coastal living. So part of that will be around being a solution showcase, being able to show other people, not only in the immediate area, but basically anybody living in a coastal community, the different types of things that we could be doing. And we would anticipate using a range of different technologies and techniques that will show the different options that are out there. So when we're looking at our sort of desired state of how we would like the site to eventually end up, one of the key things we've talked about is being resilient. So we talk about both extending and facilitating. So when I'm talking about extending, that's around increasing the amount of time that we will be able to stay on that site and operate productively until we are eventually forced to move off through sea level rise, climate change effects. The second part is around facilitating once that time does come and we do need to leave the site, to be able to easily relocate everything that we've built up. In the first instance, we're looking at infrastructure and buildings and equipment and so on that can withstand periodic flooding. And then we're looking at the same time, everything that we put into place on the site being able to be relocated further down the line. From a sustainability perspective, we would aspire to meet the criteria of the Living Building Challenge. The Living Building Challenge is probably one of the greenest building design criteria in the world. So it goes far beyond the normal Green Star LEED type buildings. And just some of the aspects around that are around, in essence, it's buildings that give more than their tank. So generating all of its own energy, net zero water, using materials that are non-toxic, recycled materials, and so on. And another great big part of the Living Building Challenge is around how the facility fits in with the community and addresses issues like equity and so on. So we feel that the Living Building Challenge is a really great platform for us to build the ongoing development of the site. And at the end of the day, we want our field centre to be part of EcoQuest being a carbon positive organisation, in addition to the general sustainability requirements. So if we have a look at some of what our current challenges are, post-COVID obviously, money, finances and resources are extremely limited. Obviously, most businesses will struggle when their income is completely stopped at the gate. So financing is an issue. In terms of the current functionality of the site, our ablution block is in need of replacement. It was built, parts of it were built in the 1950s, so it's been around a while, and it's getting reasonably tired and to the point where we need to upgrade it. And at the same time, it's likely that as soon as we start doing that, the council will start looking at our wastewater system and will require us to upgrade on that. So our intention in light of that bigger picture that I've just talked about is to use that as a starting point. And so our current thinking at the moment is that we would start by replacing our ablution block with a new building that is based on the Living Buildings Challenge. Our thinking right now is around using shipping containers would make an ideal framework for that building. Because they can be easily picked up and put on a truck and taken away. And they would very easily, first of all, we'd be using recycled containers. They could easily be raised off the ground, and we could use recycled timbers for padding and that kind of thing. The other aspect would be if the new building would have a large roof area for water collection, solar hot water panels, solar PV and so on. We would look at using composting toilets, above ground septic system if required. So you'll notice everything we're talking about, it's always above ground. The traditional approach, obviously, our existing septic system is a concrete tank buried in the ground, but that isn't very resilient to flooding and obviously isn't very easy to move. So the whole design of the new setup would look at keeping all the services raised, the pumps, the hot water cylinders and so on, all well above ground and all contained within this container set of containers that we can easily unplug and move away. So that's our thinking at the moment. And I suppose the biggest challenge is it's quite easy to come up with good ideas on what a sustainable site would look like and so on. The big challenge really is how do we get from where we are currently, given those constraints that we talked about, how do we achieve a site of that nature?
Great, thank you very much indeed. And the Mission Impossible sound was going through my mind, but fortunately we have the team of design thinkers here. Is there anything more that John or Rio wants to add to that?
Yes, one of the reasons that we thought that one of the, I guess, positive things is that currently the Resource Management Act is being replaced with three other acts, the Natural and Built Environments Act, the Strategic Planning Act and the Climate Change Act. So there's a national focus on looking for solutions around vulnerable coastal communities. In addition to that, the Hauraki District Council, of which we belong, is engaged in a project called Wharekawa 2120. So this is a 100-year visioning of what they would describe as adaptive planning. So they are, as a whole council, looking at, in a way, the same issues that we are. And so there's that opportunity, and we're the second community in the country. We're going through this facilitated process, and it's exploring with the community our concerns and our hopes, and looking at building solutions. In some ways, a macro version of what we've just presented for EcoQuest. So we consider that's a real opportunity for EcoQuest to be part of that discovering solutions are ways for resilience.
Yep. Yeah, and what we're hopeful for is that we know there's an awful lot of innovation and design going on out there, and we're just a small team, and having people with super bright new eyes and enthusiasm come into this and look at this fresh and say, yeah, these are the things that totally could happen here. That's something we really look forward to. Yeah.
Yeah. So you are in touch with ideas, people, and conversations that we aren't. So we're really excited by what you collectively can bring to the table for our community and for EcoQuest.